So I think there is, I'm not going to call it panic. I just think there's a level of reality in Tehran today about what needs to happen if Iran is to avoid the fate of Syria. I'm not saying Iran's there yet, but sanctions has an ability to erode a society from within. And you can only ask so much of a population. And when you're approaching the third generation of Iranians that have been promised an economic revival but denied it, you're at the point where these people are three generations removed from the revolution. See, revolutionary zeal can get you through a lot. I remember when the good old days in 79, when I was on the streets of Tehran hunting down the MEK. Yay. Yes, I remember when we took that incursion up to Kurdistan and we killed those Kurdish, the rebellion. Then the Iran-Iraq war, hell, it's all the veterans get together and talk about it. The veterans are long in the tooth right now. And the people that are coming in grew up when Rafsanjani initially said, I'm going to do the economic revival. And he tried to do that, but then he got caught up in the nuclear thing and the sanctions came in and that didn't work. And then I think it was Khatami after him. Man, no, was it Ahmadinejad? No, I can't. It was Rafsanjani, Ahmadinejad, Khatami, Raisi.
Yeah.
So you have this cycle of reformist, conservative getting yanked around. And meanwhile, the reformists can't close the deal with the West. The conservatives don't have what it takes to find something viable. Reformers come in, they can't close the deal with the West. And the Iranian people are just fed up, and you can't blame them. And so that first generation, the Rafsanjani, Ahmadinejad people, were still revolutionaries at core. Revolutionaries at core. Khatami came in, he was a revolutionary, but now his support base, you saw this in the Green. Remember the Green Revolution or the Green Movement? It's a third generation of Iranians coming in saying, we're not the revolutionaries and we're not the children of the revolutionaries. We're the grandchildren of the revolutionaries. And we don't believe in the revolution anymore. The Biden administration has been horrible across the board on China. There's not a single place where they've actually won. They've lost everywhere. Trump is going to come in and he's going to hopefully change things. And I'm not talking about winning against China, but I'm talking about, because first of all, Biden administration has brought us dangerously close to a nuclear war with China. That's the other thing that Blinken didn't want to talk about that I would have loved to ask about. I'd ask about the nuclear employment strategy of the Biden administration that was just promulgated. How did this happen, Tony? Your Secretary of State. Why is it that when you came in, we weren't in danger of a nuclear war with China, and as we leave, we are? What happened, Tony? Could it be that your policies suck? Could it be that your policies, because you can't compete with China economically, that you over leveraged America's military power and pushed China into a corner where they had to respond by expanding a strategic nuclear deterrence force that they never wanted to expand? China never intended to go beyond the 400 warheads that they had on old aging missiles. Now they're putting 1,000 silos in the ground with 300 missiles shuttled between them, DF-41s, solid fuel, multiple independent targeted reentry vehicles. We're screwed. So screwed, we had to redo our entire nuclear war strategy. Is that diplomatic success? Are you going to teach that in Diplomacy 201 in Harvard? You know, how to turn China into a viable nuclear force without thinking? Nothing the Biden administration did against China was successful. We've lost everywhere. Go to Peru. Here's the thing about Peru. Let's talk about railroads. The Chinese come in and build a damn port, billion-dollar port. And they're now testing it. They're bringing in giant container ships. And to get this stuff out of there, China's working on railroads extensions so that containers can land, offload, boom. And China now is starting to control the supply chain in South. So how do we respond? I think we went to California, maybe Sacramento, I don't know, city. And we bought trains that were built in the 1980s. And we sold them to the Peruvians so they could modernize their domestic transportation system. That's how we compete with China, ladies and gentlemen. That is, and when Biden recently traveled, I think, to Peru as part of this the summit that was there, Blinken and Biden are selling this. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is American. We are so damn good that we brought you 50-year-old railroad technology that doesn't work anymore. We already cashiered it, but we're going to bring it to you, make you pay for it as part of American aid package so you can install it in Lima so that your citizens can now get on board. Non-functioning trains are going to break down in a year and there's no spare parts. Meanwhile, China's built the biggest damn port in South America, and they are controlling everything, not through military dominance. It's because they're better at it than we are. The revolution isn't what drives us. We're looking for something else here. We need something to fill this, and the government's not filling it. And now we're entering into the fourth generation of Iranians, and there's an emptiness in them. And if the government doesn't find a way to fill that emptiness, Iran could very well collapse the way Syria did. So I think this government now is focused on what needs to be done to save the theocracy. Because while it's not quite where Bashar al-Assad was, if something isn't done to reverse the trajectory that they're on, that's probably the inevitable outcome. So I think you're going to see a good faith effort on the part of the United States to negotiate a deal with Iran to bring an end to Iran's nuclear weapons potential. And I think the Iranians are ready for that deal. I think one of the things that has gone and I know I'm talking to an Iranian, so these things, but the Syrian collapse was so sudden because one of the things that we did is we look at the facade of autocratic power in the form of Bashar al-Assad and all the trappings of that. We didn't realize the extent to which the sanctions, the Caesar sanctions and others, had eroded the system. And so in the end, what we were looking at is this gilded cage that was all glitter on the top, but there was nothing left. Everything had rotted out. So when HTS began their offensive, they tapped it and it collapsed. And we're all like, what the hell happened there? See, Trump's looking for a deal. He's not looking for a war. He's looking for a deal. And now you have an Iranian president who says, yeah, we'd like a deal too. We're not looking for a war. According to statements, according to the Turkish foreign minister, who apparently had conversations with the new Iranian president, the president said, we don't want to fight with Israel. We don't want to fight with the United States. We're not looking for confrontation. We're looking for normalized relations, maybe not with Israel, but we're not looking for war, but we're looking for BRICS and doing all this stuff. But we also want to work with the West. We're not totally jumping over to BRICS. We'd like to work with the West, and we're willing to negotiate. And the implication is the only thing to negotiate that they can negotiate was their nuclear program. Iran in August, September of 2023 underwent a very big crisis. It was a crisis that came out of the tragic death of the Kurdish girl who was arrested on a hijab violation and died in police custody. And legitimate demonstrations rose up throughout Iran. Demonstrations that the Iranian government said, we agree with you. These are legitimate grievances. Where the government didn't seek to violently suppress these things. They were saying, oh no, we recognize we have to make some changes. This can never happen again. They're not saying that they murdered her, but they were just saying she shouldn't have been arrested to begin with. There was no reason for this. Then outside powers took advantage of these demonstrations, and the United States, the CIA, MI6, every intelligence service that had an interest, the Mossad, Azerbaijanis, everybody, empowered their respective groups, the monarchists, the Arab Avaz movement, the Kurds, you name it, the Baluch. They said, go, rise up now. Everybody rise up at the same time and make Iran burn, and we're going to bring it down. It was the goal of the CIA to collapse Iran in the fall of 2023. Straight up goal. And it didn't work. But when I spoke to Raisi in September in New York City, he said straight up that this was one of the greatest crises that Iran has faced since the Iran-Iraq war. That it was an existential moment where Iran was tested along everything, but it tested especially in terms of society. That if there was going to be a time for the society to reject the theocracy, this was it. And they didn't. They rallied around the Iranian regime, and they survived. Obama, in April of 2015, a couple months before the JCPOA entered into effect, gave an interview with NPR where somebody asked him about what happens when the sunset clause. He said, we will re-engage on that issue at that time, meaning the United States had no intention of allowing the sunset clauses, that if Iran didn't change and voluntarily walk away from this nuclear program, that the United States would have intervened at that point in time to pull out of the JCPOA or somehow ensure that Iran never got this capacity. The JCPOA was just about buying time. Trump comes in and he, confronts the intelligence community. He says, wait a minute, time out. You guys did an assessment in 2007, right? Yes, boss. And in that assessment, you said that Iran had a secret nuclear weapons program as of 2003, right? Oh, yes, boss. And then they voluntarily did away with it, right? Yes, boss. And there's no evidence that they're doing it today. Yep. Where is it? We don't know. What was it? We don't know. Do you know anything about it? We don't know. What happens if Iran wants to, because now you've just signed a deal that says at the end of the sunset clauses, they're going to have all the enrichment capability, all the enriched material, and they have a nuclear weapons program that you don't know anything about. It just magically went away. What happens when it comes back? This is a bad deal. And he's right. From that standpoint, it's a 100% bad deal. Good deal for the Iranians. bad deal for the United States and Israel, and said, we're done. I'm not doing this, pulling the plug. But the interesting thing is he didn't say, okay, bad deal, now let's attack Iran and eliminate their regime, which is what Israel wanted. What Trump said is, I want a better deal. But the Iranians have also signaled they're ready to have negotiations. If you remember in 2018, Donald Trump withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, because he called it a bad deal. And again, you can say what you want about Donald Trump. He's the most honest politician we have out there right now, bar none. He may be stupid, and I've accused him of that many times, but he's not going to lie to you, okay? Obama lied to the American people in the world. Obama signed an agreement, entered an agreement in 2015 that he didn't believe in. And he lied to us about it. He said that it was there to create a breakout window of 1 year for Iran's nuclear program to become a nuclear weapons program. But he did it through this because he couldn't deny the Iranians their NPT rights under Article 4, which means they can enrich uranium. He couldn't do that in perpetuity. So there was these sunset clauses. And the sunset clauses, as they expired, allowed Iran to install more modern centrifuges and to accrue greater stockpiles of enriched materials so that the 1 year window disappeared. But Trump also has been given a gift, and that gift is the collapse of the government of Bashar al-Assad and what that's done to the axis of resistance and such. Doesn't mean the fighting's over. We'll find out what's going to happen to Hezbollah when the ceasefire that was negotiated with the Israelis in November expires this month. 60 days. Israel said, we're not withdrawing from southern Lebanon. I think you're going to see Hezbollah become a resistance movement whose function is to evict Israel from Lebanese territory, and Israel is going to be trapped in a conflict in southern Lebanon that they can't win. There's a couple things. I think the most immediate problem facing Israel and the United States, and the reason why I bring that up is, frankly, we're in an American-centric world right now where the only thing that matters is what matters to America. And Israel is what matters to America in the Middle East. But we're also smart enough, Trump is smart enough to know that an Israeli-American attack on Iran would lead to disastrous consequences in terms of Iran, because we can't knock Iran out. So Iran would retaliate, and the retaliation would be the destruction of Middle East energy resources, which would throw the world into an economic crisis that is the last thing Trump needs when he's trying to build Fortress America. But this time, Hezbollah won't be backed by Iran. The umbilical has been cut, and Iran is looking to create its own fortress Iran. You're going to see a lot of consolidation of power around as people seek to redefine power structures. Iran on January 17th, 3 days before Trump becomes president, will sign a strategic agreement with Russia that will be a game changer. Trump will have to take that into consideration for anything he does, to include the potential of an attack on Iran. It's not a pretty world, but that's the direction we're heading right now, is a direction of he's going to take this Panama Canal. If you don't think he's going to take the Panama Canal, you don't know Donald Trump. And I'm pretty sure he's going to end up buying Greenland as well, because you don't know Donald Trump if you think he's not. And then with Canada, we may not make Canada part of the United States, but look at the United States. He's set it forth. We're not going to give you $100 billion of subsidies. That just isn't going to happen. How does Canada survive without American subsidies? It either becomes a part of America or it subordinates itself totally to America, so that its economy is de facto extension of the American economy. That's the direction that Trump is taking it. And given the political dysfunction in Canada, this is the reason why Trump is able to do this, because all across Europe and Canada and elsewhere in the Western world, you have these dysfunctional neoliberal governments that have been in place, these political and economic elites that have been, ruling based upon a world that was built on the foundation of the rules-based international order. That's the American-dominated system. That system is failing, and Trump knows it. Trump sees it. So Trump's going to change the system, but all these people have been riding off of that, living, surviving on the periphery. When that system collapses and redefines, there's nothing to hold them up. And you're seeing Canada collapse, Great Britain collapse, Germany collapsing, France collapsing, South Korea collapsing. Japan will collapse. They will all collapse, because without core American militarist hegemon, they're nothing. And when Trump seeks to redefine what America is, these people will be left basically as the veneer on an empty shell, and they will collapse. That's the state of the world today. That's the direction we're heading. Right now, Donald Trump is a revolutionary. He's revolutionary change in the world today. Can he pull it off? I don't know. Should he be allowed to pull it off? I don't know. But I can tell you he's going to damn well try.